Hi, Greg. How you doing tonight?
Well, pretty good. What's going on?
I thought I'd make a full moon video with you. It's a full moon. The moon's in Virgo. It's about to be in Libra. Two of my wives, uh, uh, Victoria was a Virgo.
So am I, come to think of it.
Yeah. And my second wife, who's still alive, was never murdered. She's a Libra. I'm a Cancer with a Libran ascendant.
And she got to go free. She was the one that wasn't murdered. That's interesting.
No, I'm a Cancer with a Libran descendant in my 11th house. I've
Yeah,
had,
and you have cancer. Isn't that weird? That's amazing how that all goes together.
yeah.
And you like to find sort of
Libra is in
a
scales like Judge
it's
Skelly of the
it's a
murder.
strong point in the month for you to come out on a full moon video, like the moon gives you strength. And that was the name of my book, was Why is the Moon a Cube? And we talked a little bit about that even in my book, about how when I introduced you there, about how your strength sort of comes by the strength of the moon, and you use that to remind yourself of your wives. And I talked about some of this stuff about how they murder by the moon. It's interesting how all that goes together.
Yeah, I'm best on a full moon, so I make my videos on a full moon
Right, right,
because I'm the real history of your country that all the media and the government has been hiding for 7 decades.
right. And some murderers will sync their murders with the eclipse of the moon, showing that the moon is eclipsed or doesn't have the power, and it's a symbolic language to them.
Yeah, and you know I have murders in my life daily, so I
Right,
just use
right.
I use the full moon to combat the people murdering kids and women in my life.
Right. So you're showing the strength of the moon, it's really interesting.
Yeah, the moon on a full moon, I'm at my best. So I'm fighting back on the full moon they use to murder people. That's correct, Greg. So what have you?
Now I was thinking about some things here. I got a Facebook post here, and just pondering how our country can be as dumb as they are and why they're dumb. Why did they vote for someone like Trump? And I did too, because there was no other choice. But what about him appealed to other people, to so many
Other
people, the
people
way that they
didn't know
did?
the other people didn't know who he really is. I mean, they
Right.
they elected a person who took $5 billion from five different U.S. banks and ran his campaign on money from Nazi douche bank in Germany.
Yeah.
And the majority of people, they didn't know these things. So, and I myself voted for Trump because he was better than voting for the Democrats who murdered two of my wives.
Right. Right. But how did our country get to the point where we needed, those were our only two choices? How have we sunk this low? I got a theory what made President Trump attractive to most people, and it makes a lot of sense. I think. You see what you think. Here's a post that I made. I'll just read it. You tell me what you think
Well,
about this. And
I don't think that President Obama was ever attractive because he was born in Kenya and he had 15 fake social security numbers and he had houses
exactly.
in a whole bunch of different states. And I know that the Queen of London groomed him to be the American president. So he was never attractive to me. And number one, I'm
Sure.
not afraid to say I'm a white man and I vote for my own country.
Right. Right. So that's, yeah. So, and that's why we had to choose him. Right.
And
But I think
I'm
what.
not racist. I lived with a black family growing up. I'm not racist.
Mhm.
But I'm a white man. It just stands to reason I'm going to stand behind my own race, especially when blacks and Asians are attacking me.
Yeah.
I have to stand up for who I am. And
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with
I'm
that.
not
There's
made
nothing wrong
for
with standing up and saying, and just supporting your own community, saying, listen, you don't need to replace me. We can all work together, but you don't need to actively work to try to get rid of me.
that did we can all work together didn't get Rodney King very far.
Exactly.
And me getting on a knee to Asians and people around me saying that I'm a white supremacist ain't going to get me very far either, and it's not going to get them anywhere. The
Right.
people who call me a white supremacist are way off base. I lived with a black family growing up, and I
Now
lived.
that all tells us why we had to pick Trump over Biden, and I get that. But how is it that we only had Biden and Trump? Well,
I
and
don't like.
why didn't we get something better
Greg,
than Trump to
I
run
don't
against
like
Obama?
either. I don't like Biden or Clinton or Obama simply because they, in conjunction with Major Tom Garrett at CBS in the White House journalist position, murdered my wives and my attorney. My wives
Yeah.
were Republicans. Terry Heath, her family ran with McCain as a Democrat, and she was murdered
Yes.
when
Yes.
Obama was president at my home.
And here in this post that I'm going to read, I mentioned how your last wife there, Victoria, how Trump went to Oakland County, where she was from, on the anniversary of her murder. And I know that's not a coincidence.
No, none of these things are.
But here's how I think Trump appealed to people because of the state that we're in. I'm going to read this. It's not very long. It's just a post from Facebook. I'm theorizing that the primary reason that Trump became president was because he appeared on the WWE. Our nation's become so debased culturally and intellectually. The wrestlers have become state governors, truth tellers, and now even president. The WWE, or WWF at the time, stole Hugh's bottom line trademark and was being used by the government to help hide its theft and plan 9/11. That's the reason that they gave you Ventura and Trump. And it's the reason Jim Duggan's family, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, is the mayor of Detroit, where many of the WWF's early wrestlers came from.
Also, the chief of police is Craig, and that's Billy Squier's real name, Craig. And when they stole my life back in the 60s, after murdering the Kennedys, they stole my life.
Okay.
They stole my trademark bottom line. Then they stole my name, Hugh. They stole my name, Francis, and they stole my name, Squier. And they did all this simultaneously as they stole 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts I owned at Bottom Line Publishing in New York.
Well, hold on. They're going to lose focus on what I'm saying if you go too much on a tangent. Just hang on. Hold that thought 1 minute here. But it's the reason Jim Duggan's family is the mayor of Detroit, where many of the WWF's early wrestlers came from. We were talking about that the other day about many of the early wrestlers.
And that was the drunk Steve Austin coming out saying that's the bottom line as they murdered me and murdered kids on my properties.
And here's what you told me about where that came from. Your uncle owned the patent on and he was an inventor.
You're breaking up,
Fuller
Greg.
family in Buckminster
Greg,
Fuller.
you completely broke up on that. Please say all of that again.
Okay. We were talking about how your
My
uncle Buckminster Fuller from the Fuller family owned the patent on the van. And DuPont, the DuPont company, painted the vans.
That's correct. The vans, the milk trucks, and the buses.
DuPont helped create the WWF from the very beginning.
That's correct.
Okay? So this all goes together from your early childhood.
When I was born, Milky the Clown at Twin Pines, my father was making the milk trucks for the Fuller family, who was my family. DuPont had to contract with his chemical company to provide the electroplated paint. Came from DuPont that painted all of those vehicles. Claire Cummins is the diesel engine. Fuller, who owned the buses and the Chevy vans and the milk trucks, is my family. And we own the transmission in the semis. Milky the Clown, his family was the diesel engine in the semis. He was there at my birth at Divco and at Christmas parties when I was 1 year old, when I was born. He left Twin Pines to work for DuPont. And at that time, they created the WWF and stole my trademark Bottom Line.
Right, and that's why Twin Pines is on Back to the Future, because that was Twin Pines Dairy, and that has to do with the patents and DuPont. It all
Yeah,
goes
and then
together.
if you notice, it was Michael J. Fox, and I lived with the Fox family on a reservation.
Yeah, you dated Carmela Fox.
Michael is my older brother who is a decorated soldier from Vietnam, as my cousin piloted the Enterprise during the Vietnam War. And you got Michael J. Fox, and J as Janet Barclay, who was my secretary at Bottom Line in Shelby Service Center. And then you had Doc going back to the future, and the doctor who gave birth to me in 1953 was Dr. Barker, and you grew up with Bob Barker, same name.
Back to the Future 3 had Mayor Hugh of Hughville. That's not a coincidence.
Right. No, they marked me with those films. And
right, and even the clock tower was the same as the tower where you played in Utica. You know, is just amazing.
Yeah, no, they marked me with all of that, and I grew up with John DeLorean. They used a DeLorean to go into the future.
Yeah, and then DeLorean's Time magazine article when he was arrested, and I have a copy of that.
That was the
and it says Bottom Line, arrested, right there on the cover of Time magazine with John DeLorean's picture.
That was being run by all the senators in the country.
Right. Now I'm gonna finish this post here.
But you didn't let me finish. The doctor who delivered me, Bob Barker, the entire globe got Bob Barker with Vanna White for decades. My family owned the Vans, and I'm a white man. I lived on an Indian reservation with the Fox family, and none of them. Michael J. Fox, his father was in the military with both my cousin piloting the Enterprise in Vietnam and my brother, who came back a hero. He saved an entire village in Vietnam. So they marked me and my brother with the Back to the Future movies.
But see, this is why this post is important. I'm talking about because this is Trump going in and becoming a wrestler in the WWE, and this all has to do with the childhood and your life and Back to the Future and DuPont, and this all goes together. And this is how Trump is in on this. This is why it's no coincidence that he appeared last year on October 30th on the anniversary of your wife's murder in Oakland County.
Well, Trump himself, everybody in his White House cabinet are people I grew up with in Oakland County.
Exactly.
Miller, the Barr family, Bob
Mueller.
and I used to make airplanes together. We built the Dodge Shadow assembly line in a warehouse on 8 Mile and Outer Drive. I was working with Bob Bolton at that time.
And he was friends with Graham, and Graham owns Graham Media in Detroit.
Yeah, Graham owns the media that's hidden me for 7 decades. So everybody in Trump's White House are people who have hidden me since I was kidnapped and my own family member murdered, and we were 4 years old. And Trump is a part of that, and those are the people he hangs out with. The man who run his campaign, the Stone family, a man, Dr. Stone, who wasn't a doctor, he forged a doctor's degree and a degree of surgery. He cut the bone out of my feet illegally when I was a little kid, Greg. And they did these things to me as torture. These are Donald Trump's friends. And the world doesn't know this because when they murdered my cousins, the Kennedys, whom I was working with at the Berne Convention, all of that was suppressed by the government, by the CIA and the FBI. They feel that America can't know the truth of who really killed the Kennedy family. So they never gave you that truth. All of my wives were murdered on the Manning properties. I purchased the Manning properties. The Manning family created the JFK archives. This is murders of my wives to suppress my truth. And
again, why they gave you Manning. That's again why they gave you Manning as a story, right as they murdered Victoria.
No, they gave you the world Bradley Manning, who was a gay man who got a sex change in prison after in league with Julian Assange, and this is CIA operatives
Right. It's so obvious
giving
that's how
you
they're
a fake story
obscuring.
as they pretend to be truthers.
Right. And that's how they use the same names and obscure the history. So when people look into it to try to look into JFK's murder
Well,
or
this
something
is a
like that, they find this
no-brainer,
sort of
Greg.
information.
This is a no-brainer because look at Biden, who with Obama murdered two of my wives on the Manning Ranch,
Right.
one in 2003 and one in 2011, both on holidays. One was on July 4th, 2003. The next one was on Halloween Day, 2011. Joe Biden was vice president under the president who did that with CBS while I owned the Manning properties.
Right.
All right.
And July 4,
Now, Joe Biden is president, and he just appointed as his vice president my family name again, the Harris family.
Right.
And
July 4. Hold on with that July 4 for a second. See, she was murdered on July 4. And like we said, Trump appeared in Oakland County on the anniversary of Victoria's murder. Well, that's also why,
Greg, that was the anniversary of Terry Heath, her murder. Victoria was murdered Halloween Day.
Yeah, no, that's when he showed up on Halloween, or like one day before, I think.
Okay, well, you just
30.
said July 4th.
No, I know, but
I wanted to make it straight.
We're talking about two things and we're getting them mixed up. But the July 4 murder, you're talking about her. Well, that's why all last year during the election, you had Donald Trump at 74 years old because of July 4. And that constant talk about how Biden had been in the Senate for 47 years. Well, so it's just 47 backwards. They're always talking about that number.
He was Obama's vice president as the White House murdered my wife. And my wife was in a wheelchair with muscular dystrophy. She was not a criminal.
Right. And that's why they kept using that number over and over.
Terry Heath was kidnapped by 2 off-duty police. That's why I put her on a Manning property. She asked me to help her because police in Wisconsin kidnapped her out of her CPS office protecting children. She created the Head Start program for Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was a Republican, was he not?
Right.
Oh, well, Democrats murdered Terry Heath.
Right.
On the Manning properties.
Right. So this is how they work together. Yeah.
This is a role reversal.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy was a Democrat. Kennedy would never murder my family. I'm his cousin.
Right.
You know, so Joe Biden and Obama did a role reversal of the Democratic Party, and I don't think it. I know it. They murdered Terry Heath, and Terry Heath, Sarah Heath Palin, the same family, ran as a Democrat with John McCain. So there's been a role reversal.
Now, Palin was a Republican. Palin was Republican with John McCain. John McCain was Republican.
Well, okay. Well, I always viewed McCain as a Democrat because he acted like a Democrat.
Right. Well, he was. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm telling you. There's a role reversal.
Right.
And they murdered my family. My family back when Kennedy was murdered, we all voted for Kennedy. We were Democrats, but that's not the same Democratic Party that is Joe Biden or Obama or the Clintons. That party no longer exists.
Yeah.
They murdered the real Democratic Party leaders, the Kennedys, 5 of them. And
now both parties are just working together to hide what they did. Now the people that did this are in both parties now.
Yeah, the Republicans, Trump, he appointed Barr, Graham is his best friend. They own the media. And Roseanne Barr lived in my community where little kids were murdered, and she was never used by the people I was used by.
Right. It's the CEO of Graham Media is Barr.
Child killers.
Yeah. The CEO of Graham Media is Barr, Hugh.
L. Brooks Patterson hid this truth right through to his death. In 2015, before he died, I tried to talk to him. He refused to talk to me. Why? On the truth of the murders of kids in Oakland County since 1957. They murdered kids and threw them on my properties. They murdered little Timmy King. They murdered a girl they picked up on Gardner Street. I'm the king in the Gardner family. Right. President Gerald Ford, his real name is not Ford, it's Gardner and King, my family. They were murdering little kids after they murdered the Kennedys and before they murdered the Kennedys. And the people murdering the little kids killed the Kennedys. L. Brooks Patterson completely denied that truth. And he was there when I was kidnapped. He completely denied the truth of the Oakland County child killers and the 5 governors who kidnapped me. And Senator Graham's family, Graham Media and Graham Trucking, has hidden my truth for 7 decades. So that's
why Barr runs Graham Media.
Yeah, he still runs it to this day, the Graham family. Peter Graham lives down in Florida by Trump, and that's Graham Trucking from Michigan. When I was born, Graham Trucking was the biggest trucking company in Michigan. It still may be. I don't know. I don't keep up with things like that.
Yeah,
but you had Graham Trucking and you had Werner Trucking, Werner. And then everybody in my neighborhood helped to frame Oswald, and they helped Osborne frame him. And Osborne is the family that kidnapped me and was killing little kids.
Yeah.
And nobody knows
amazing.
This. You know it because you looked into what I said, and you wrote my biography.
And Osborne was even on video with Oswald in the barracks, so we know they were even together.
Right.
So there's even that connection, and we have the video where he's talking about it.
Yeah, and then Manning and Garrison.
It's not some theory.
Garrison was my alumni. I was a teacher with Mr. Garrison. Garrison and Manning
created the archives.
Created the JFK archives, and it's lies from my neighbors, from Lawson, Klein, Osborne, all the people, Wallace, everybody in the JFK archives is somebody that grew up in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then you had to lie.
And they run the FBI and the media still today.
Yeah,
I mean, Wallace is in the media today on Fox News.
Yeah. And just today we had, I'm still getting over COVID. I still have COVID symptoms. I have a hard time breathing. I have phlegm in my lungs that's like coagulated blood. I itch. My hands and my feet itch with rashes.
Yeah.
I have a dry mouth that won't go away.
You were unconscious for 3 days here not too long ago. Lost like 60 pounds. I mean,
and I had it before anybody in the country had it.
They started it out right there where you live, bringing it to America.
In King County, and I'm the King family.
Right. Just like
and then now they have, I was
President
kidnapped
Ford.
at 4, and right here where I live, they're watching 4 people for Ebola now.
Yeah, I have that article pulled up. State says 4 people being monitored for Ebola virus in Oregon. This is from 1 day ago.
Well, these diseases are being given to me on purpose, Greg. They're trying to kill me. They want, on my death certificate, they want it to say natural causes.
Yeah.
Because they've been discrediting me in the media for 7 decades. If I say something on a video, they immediately go and they change all the stories. You watched them do that at Ruby.
We've seen it happen even live on some stories.
You've watched them change the baker name. You've watched them do all kinds of things since you met me.
Yeah, and we've even seen them change internet stories and take it off the internet in live time.
Yeah, they run the internet, and they can change the stories and remove stories anytime they want. And you watch them do it in real time. The government wants me dead, period. And I'm stubborn. I'm hard to kill. I don't go to bars. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't cheat on wives. I don't do drugs. So they have a hard time, just killing me.
Yeah.
My wives, who they murdered, they had health problems. They murdered them and on the Manning properties. I found them, gave them CPR, flew them to hospitals, and then the government murdered them a second time in the hospitals. They have a hard time doing that to me because I don't use hospitals.
Right. Yeah, you stay away from it.
I know what they do there. They've murdered 4 of my wives in hospitals. I've watched.
These are huge setups that they've had to, the government had to pay a whole lot of people to orchestrate these murders.
They paid millions of dollars to kill Victoria.
Yeah.
And then not long after they murdered Victoria, who was Jerry Lewis's poster girl for MD?
Hmm.
Jerry Lewis was dead. And Jan
Yeah.
Brewer and Joe Arpaio, who knew L. Brooks Patterson and me,
I
I know,
pardoned him. Yeah.
they wouldn't help me. And then the police who, when I filed murder charges in 2 cities in Tennessee, where they murdered Cherry and Victoria,
Hmm.
all of the police departments in Greenville and in Johnson City, Tennessee, 2 cities, 60 miles apart, the police used fake names and fake badge numbers in both cities on dozens of murder reports. Breaking and entering reports. I had 5 doors on my house, and every door was shattered into pieces by break-ins as they murdered my wives. They used fake names and badge numbers in 2 police departments. My wife was being protected by a former state policeman from Senator Graham's state, and her throat was slit on Halloween Day as my attorney murdered, and the state policeman didn't see a thing. After I told them people were trying to kill her, there were police reports. He talked to me in person, and I told him numerous times, people are murdering my wife in your hospital. He was the security, and he didn't see anything, Greg. But her ears were missing, and her throat was slit Halloween Day.
Yeah. In the hospital. So imagine the amount of money that had to have
where
been spent.
Graham's state police force was supposedly protecting her. They didn't protect her. They looked the other way as she was murdered, and she was
Yeah. They
tortured.
were paid off. They had to
They
have been
tortured her
coordinated and
there for
paid.
35 days, Greg. They
Hmm.
waited for Halloween night to murder her. And I don't think it, I know it. Her children are Freddie and Michael.
County only, it was on
Her
the 30th, I
children,
think, last
Greg,
year.
her children, she had 2 boys, are Freddie and Michael. Freddie Krueger and Michael Myers.
Right.
And they
Right.
marked her with this her whole life because she was a muscular dystrophy poster girl.
And
For
again, that hails back to Kennedy because they killed Kennedy on Elm Street.
right, exactly, exactly. They've marked me and my wives in Hollywood movies for 7 decades.
So this goes back to how the WWE and DuPont and all this and all worked together. WWF at the time later became WWE because just like they stole your trademark, they stole another trademark, the WWF, and they were forced in court to give that
Out of
back and change it to
my
WWE.
federation. I was murdered twice before I turned 19. I was murdered by 2 doctors before I turned 19. And those murder cases disappeared both in the police department in Oakland County and in the hospital records. Murder cases disappear in my life. And it was my own murder. I was DOA at the hospital twice before I was 19 years old in Oakland County.
This is interesting too, and I don't know if it's related or not, but this whole town where I live, DuPont's like the center of it. It's the biggest employer around here. It looks like a huge factory, big city. And 2 movies were made right here in this area. And one was starring Mark Ruffalo, who was the Incredible Hulk on Avengers, and it's called Dark Waters. And then the other movie that was made here uh, was from the Andy Griffith Show's family. Not Andy Griffith, but the funny sheriff. What was the guy that worked with Andy Griffith?
I
Uh,
don't have a clue. The little
Everybody knows his name. The funny guy, Don Knotts. Well, Don Knotts was the director for this other movie, and it was a WWE movie. It was Zombies versus Wrestlers. Was the name of the movie, or Wrestlers versus Zombies, one way or the other, and it had Roddy Piper in it. So we've had 2 movies right here, probably because of the DuPont, and Don Knotts was the director of the Wrestlers versus, which I found interesting because Don Knotts is from this town. But anyway, it's we have this huge DuPont here in this town, and that hails back to your history. And here we've had movies, with wrestlers. I just find that fascinating. That may be connected. Um,
Here's what
also,
really connected and matters, Greg. is Kamala Harris. I'm the Harris family, and we didn't sell slaves. We were against slavery, and we were seated with Abraham Lincoln in Ford Theater as he was
Yeah,
murdered.
we've mentioned that in a few other videos.
Yeah, by the actor. Kamala Harris was the prosecutor in California, was she not?
Sure.
Well, the prosecutor in Detroit is Craig, the very family who stole my last name, Squier. And Al Brooks Patterson hid my truth of the Oakland County child killers, and those killers murdered the Kennedys. Charisse is proof of that. Charisse Kennedy, the little girl they raped, and then they told you she committed suicide in the Kennedy compound. Kamala Harris grew up knowing Al Brooks Patterson and prosecutors of Detroit, Hill and Craig, who stole my trademark.
That's why it's so important for them to rewrite history the way they're doing it.
Kamala Harris is another prosecutor stealing my grandfather's name, pretending to be my family.
And they're entertainment lawyers, like the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. And she's an entertainment lawyer.
She's running up and down the Lincoln Memorial steps. And I'm the president's on your money. I'm the Lincoln family, the Grant family, the Chase family, the Jackson family. That's who I am.
Mm-hmm. And this is also why the WWF used Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was a bouncer at a bar where you played there in Michigan, even though he denies it since then.
Him and his brother were both my bouncers for a week or two.
Yeah.
And then they ran back to Florida, started having sex with his neighbor's wife.
Right. And this is how, Hugh, this is how you had him and Randy Savage able to come out and say 12 years before 9/11 that the Twin Towers will come crumbling down as they're attacked.
All of this was pre-planned in my life. On my baby picture.
This is how obvious it is that DuPont and the WWF had something to do with all this.
Yeah, well, George Towers took the photographs, and his brother, Del Towers, was my music teacher in high school. My baby pictures have the Twin Towers on the back in 1953 before they were built.
Yeah. With
the Towers family taking the pictures. I mean, all of this.
George Towers took your baby pictures, and even says his name right there.
This is why the White House has been murdering my wives. They don't want you, the American public, to know the truth of my life.
See, this is fascinating, but this is why people can't understand it, because the WWE and WWF gets people's attention better than the truth does. All the lies and all the baloney, people feed into the garbage, and they believe all the history that they give them as they rewrite history in front of them, and they can't even see the reality of what really happened and how they've rewritten history, and people are dumbed down. That's why they can make a movie like Zombies. And
some people can. The kids who watch this and fall for it, growing up with it, they can't. But the people who made this country, we see right through it. But we're not allowed in the media.
Right. And there's so few left that can even see reality for what it is.
I've been involved in hundreds and hundreds of murders of children and women, correct?
Involved, not meaning you killed them, but yeah, maybe be careful the way you say that, people get confused. But there's been a lot of murders around your life.
I was told by the government, if I murder myself, the murders of Americans will stop. They told me that 20 years ago. I'm not suicidal. Why should I kill myself because the White House is murdering Americans? That don't even make sense.
No.
They bothered me with murders. They'll murder a person and throw them on my property. They did that for 20 years. Then they arrested me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder. And I'm not a murderer. They arrested me. The FBI detained me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder before they detained Chucky O'Brien, my neighbor. I grew up with the O'Brien family. Dr. O'Brien and Roseanne Barr and Kathy O'Brien and Chucky O'Brien grew up in Oakland County. And they won't allow me on radio or TV. Look at how many books they've written about Kennedy's murder and Hoffa's murder and the Oakland County. I'm not mentioned in any of it. And I'm ground zero. And this is why the government murdered my wives. I have nobody. My wives lived with me. They know I'm telling the truth. They could have corroborated And like you, they could have backed up every word I say. They murdered them.
Yep.
I've been
Yep.
murdered half a dozen times. I keep coming back for more. And they've murdered me. They've tried to murder me through doctors, through hitmen for my entire life.
Right. And this is possibly why they brought coronavirus to this country. It was possibly because it was
Coronavirus
open right there in
started
your
right
area.
here. It started right here, and I know the doctor that created it.
Mm-hmm.
I named the doctor. They'll never admit to the truth. Trump blamed China for it. It wasn't China's fault.
Right.
And at the same time, Trump is blaming China. Joe Biden's getting payola from China, and both of them deny I exist. My wife, I've had 4 wives dismembered and murdered on holidays in 40 years, and the district attorney turns a blind eye in 5 states. Oh, I needed an attorney general. So Trump gave you Attorney General Barr, who was my neighbor, hiding my truth for 7 decades. Roseanne Barr and Kathy O'Brien have been hiding me for 7 decades with Senator Graham's family, the Graham family, and L. Brooks Patterson. Now you have a prosecutor from California where they made the movies hiding me, as they marked my whole life, use my name, Hugh and Squier, give you Billy Squier and Huey Lewis. Now she's using my grandfather's name, Harris, pretending to be my grandfather's family in the Smithsonian. She's not my family.
Right.
This is being done on purpose by prosecutors, attorney generals, White House presidents, and they're hiding my truth. And it's so evident, it's plain to see. Anybody can go back and look at the first videos I made 20 years ago. I named the people. I named Osborne. I named
Which runs the
Brian.
sex crimes division of the FBI now.
I named Miller. I bought Miller a house. Miller wrote a book, said he killed Jimmy Hoffa. That's complete baloney.
Yeah.
The FBI wrote reports and said they found a spot of Hoffa's blood in the house I bought for Miller. It's baloney, Greg. They're hiding me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm at the end of my life. I'm still saying truth, and because they've kept me out of all media, as they used my names all over the world.
I hope that you telling this story, that all the people that are just enamored by the WWF, and this is as far as their brain can take them, is that they listen to wrestlers. Maybe this will tell them why Trump had to wrestle McMahon. Okay, this is how all this is related. This is why this happened. Maybe that one thought will stick in somebody's head.
It's not even just the wrestlers. The Rock, Wayne, what's his name? Dwayne Johnson. Well, who was Kennedy's vice president?
Johnson. Mm-hmm.
Johnson. Oh, so now you have a wrestler, Dwayne Johnson, who stole my trademark, just like Johnson stole the presidency through the 5 governors that kidnapped me. And Dwayne Johnson looks exactly like my lead player in Bottom Line.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, exactly. And, the same family, Greg. Mm-hmm. Same family. I would bet you they're cousins.
And Steve Austin's out there saying, and that's the bottom line.
Now, Steve Austin is Austin Steel. The Austin Steel Company was the family that murdered Jimmy Hoffa. And I don't think it, I know it. The guy was my father-in-law. It's half the reason I divorced his daughter.
Yeah.
And
they probably made some of the steel for the Twin Towers.
Alive. My next 4 wives were murdered, Greg. The only woman still alive is the one who worked at Austin Steel Company. They stole my trademark. They stole my name.
Right. And his real name, I believe, is Anderson, too.
Yeah, and Anderson kidnapped me. That's correct.
Yep.
Anderson and Andrews and Long and Wallace and Osborne. Osborne's, they chained me to a toilet in Osborne's basement. These were the families of governors.
Right.
And 7 years before they murdered JFK.
Right.
7 years, Greg.
Alex Jones went to Anderson High School, and his wife was Nichols.
None of this. This is all pre-planned, so they can be in the White House.
Yeah.
And they've been using me since birth to do this, and they murdered your presidents. so they could be in the White House. They stole money from my family's bank so they could be in the White House. They stole my trademark. It was 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts at BMI and ASCAP, worldwide entertainment contracts.
Worldwide entertainment, WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. See,
yeah, they stole my life.
And they stole bottom line, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm still sitting here talking about it. And people tell me I sound like a broken record, or they tell me I interject myself into these things. I didn't interject myself into nothing. My neighbors here in America interjected themselves into my wives and the kids in my life, and they murdered them.
Yeah, and spent millions of dollars of taxpayer money to do it.
Greg, nobody's in jail, and the police turn a blind eye to all these murders, and there's hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And if I were lying, why am I involved and right there for hundreds of murders of children and women? Why am I always there? And you know yourself, I don't murder people. When I met you, you wanted to have a civil war, remember?
Yeah, I did get a little fed up sometimes.
I talked you out of it, didn't I? I said, killing people ain't going to solve your problem. You need to do it using justice in the court system, didn't I?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm doing, isn't it? Yeah. I have an open murder case. The police turn a blind eye to the murder of my lawyer and my wife, Victoria. Yeah. They had to open a murder case. Her ears were missing. There was nothing wrong with her ears. Who cut her ears off? I had to bury Victoria without her ear.
I admire your patience for trying to use a system that is openly hostile to being used to
there's still some honest people out there somewhere. I'm just waiting for some of them to get in a position of authority and help me.
Yeah.
I might be dead before that happens, but I believe in America. My family created America. I'm related to Thomas Jefferson and all the presidents on your money. My family authored America after kicking King James or King George off the Delaware Bridge.
Yeah, an effigy, right.
And I'm related to King James. He wrote your Bible. I owned a ministry. I owned a ministry in Tennessee where they murdered 2 of my wives on the Manning Ranch. I'm not lying.
Right. So today I made a post to get people to think, because if we don't get this democracy that we have right.
America's not a democracy. America.
I understand that. I know that in principle. But
Democrat, I mean, when you talk Democrat, you might as well talk communism. These people are not for America.
Right.
Joe Biden taking payola and then appointing a prosecutor who's hiding the truth of Kennedy's murder with L. Brooks Patterson and Duggan and Craig in Detroit, and the prosecutors in Tennessee, Slater and Barr. These people aren't for freedom. These people are fleecing you, just like a communist dictator.
Right.
And until people get that through their head and vote for some people who aren't fleecing you, you're going to have the same problems. But that doesn't mean that the Republic of America is bad. It means the people running the government are bad, Greg.
Right.
And we, the people, need to vote for some. You need to listen to people like myself who live these things. And I'm telling you, I've had 4 wives dismembered and murdered on holidays. Do you think I'm crazy, Greg?
No, Hugh, I spent a lot of time looking into everything you say.
Yeah, you know me, and you know everything I say. You can look it up and read, and you see the names I'm telling you about. And you know I got a real murder case open for Victoria. Just because the police don't try to solve the murders, it doesn't mean I'm crazy. I opened that murder case in 2017. 2 women, Terry Heath, Victoria, they were dismembered and murdered and raped before they were murdered on holidays. There's an open murder case in Tennessee. Not once has the Tennessee Police Department called me and done any investigating.
And you've kept the same cell phone on the entire time.
Yeah, I still have the cell phone. I opened the murder case up. The only person on earth who has the phone number is the detective. Never once has he called me. So they not only use fake badge numbers, fake names in two Tennessee cities, And the DA was never informed of the murders.
Right.
They wrote natural causes on missing body parts. They
So
called
you need a prosecutor to get the DA to get the.
I need a good criminal lawyer to make them look into the murders.
Right. Right.
And file
And
charges with
they murdered your last lawyer, so this lawyer would need what? Would need some special protection. What would they need to make sure?
I don't have a clue. All I know is the Attorney General in Tennessee is turning a blind eye to murders in his state.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and it's not one murder, it's 4 murders.
Right.
And a dozen other murders of my neighbors. My neighbors had their wives and mothers murdered in the same hospital also. I made phone calls and recorded them and put up videos. My caretaker's mother was murdered in the same hospital. The guy who owns the biggest gold store in Greenville, Tennessee, his mother was murdered in the same hospital. And they'll look at me and they've given up. They say, well, you can't do nothing about it. I don't believe that. I live in a free country and I can do something about it. And if
It
they
seems like the right lawyer would be able to look into this.
If they had done something about it instead of cowering like cowards when their mothers and wives were killed, I wouldn't have had the problem I had, would I?
Right, that's true.
Yeah, they all cower like cowards because it's the government murdering their mothers. This is ridiculous. I'm not a coward. And I don't care if it's the Attorney General of Tennessee or the sheriff and 2 police stations covering up the murders, or the White House, Obama and Biden covering up the murders as they steal my grandfather's name and pretend to be my family in the White House. I'm not a coward, and I'm going to just keep talking about these people because it's truth. I'm an American citizen. I'm related to presidents on your money. Thomas Jefferson was my ancestor. He authored the Constitution, and I know who I am. And I'm speaking truth. And I'm not going to stop speaking truth because some idiot at CVS and another idiot in the White House murdered my wives. I'm going to continue to say truth until the day I die. And I'm not a broken record. I'm an old man that's been seeking justice in murders since 1953.
Right. And that's exactly what needs to be done.
I know. And then people tell me I'm crazy because I'm doing it.
Right. I get tired of people saying that.
Greg, I'm seeking justice within the American court system. You know what kind of justice I got? Supreme Court Justice was, Scalia was murdered in Houston. I'm Hugh, and Houston is in Harris County. Kamala Harris is stealing my grandfather's name right now. She's not the Harris family. She's the
pretty clear what happened there, and that's why it's obviously that he was murdered.
And gee, Greg, her husband is an entertainment attorney. An entertainment attorney. Yeah. Oh, gee, so was Michelle Obama. Oh, gee, so was Obama himself. They gave up their attorney degrees. Oh, and who stole my life? Oh, entertainment lawyers. Oh, and now they're stealing the White House and stealing my grandfather's name. I'm not going to stop saying the truth. I'm the truth. And I'm not a broken record. I'm seeking justice for murdered women and kids.
Right, right.
The people who tell me that, they are the broken record. They're broken. They're shattered in little pieces. You can't stop my truth. Who's going to stop my truth? I'm never going to stop saying it. And these videos will be here forever. It's truth. My wives were dismembered and murdered.
Yeah, the world's got this crazy idea that somehow you're supposed to just, and Christians in the churches have this crazy idea that you're just supposed to forgive everybody.
No, I'm not going to forgive them.
But Hugh, even God doesn't just automatically forgive people. He seeks justice first.
My second wife, who's still alive, whose family murdered my next 4 wives, her friends and family murdered my next 4 wives. The renegades, the outlaws, the White House. Who do you think the White House hired to murder them? They hired hitman from the biker clubs. Who was Trump's friends? The biker clubs.
Right.
Who did he appoint as Attorney General? My next door neighbor, Barr, who hid me and lied to the world. Roseanne Barr was never used by Hollywood. Roseanne Barr is Hollywood. She worked for Graham Media her entire life with Osborne, the people who kidnapped me in 1953.
Right.
You understand this, Greg? This is the biggest cover up this earth has ever seen. And I'm not a broken record. I'm seeking justice and I'm speaking truth.
Right.
I've said so much there. It's unbelievable. Now we have 4 cases of Ebola, and I was kidnapped and raped at 4. And they
Just the thought that you're keeping that phone active, that you gave them the number 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and you've kept that phone there, yeah, and not even received a single call. See, somebody needs to make them make that call.
Greg, before I opened the murder case, they called people all around me and told them I murdered my wife. And there wasn't a murder case. That's half the reason I went and opened a murder case. My attorney never made it to the district attorney's office to file charges because he was murdered the same night my wife was.
Yeah.
And his name was Mr. Bauman. Oh, just like Janet Bauman, my secretary at Bottom Line, at the Carousel, the factory that I rented from Jack Ruby, his trademark, the Carousel. I'm truth, Greg, and nobody on this earth is going to tell me I'm a broken record or I'm crazy.
Right.
Or I interject myself into these things. My neighbors murdered little kids and my wives for 7 decades, and they've gotten away with all these murders. Yeah. And then they keep writing, the very people who murdered my family and kids around me, they keep writing books and saying they're the truth of Kennedy, who they murdered, and they're the truth of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. And none of them are saying truth, and they're all hiding me. I was at all these murders, Greg. I was with Jimmy Hoffa in the morning. My mother was with him that night. The FBI detained me the next morning. But some guy in Vegas, George in Vegas, writes a book and gives it to Coast, and he's the truth of Hoffa's murder from Vegas. Well, Frank Sinatra is one of my family members. He was married to Mrs. Gardner. I'm the Gardner family. I'm the Baker family. And you know all these things, Greg. The rest of the world doesn't. I'm Gerald Ford's family.
Yeah, and we're here on, we'll answer questions. People have got enough sense to ask.
No, everybody just ignores murders of women and kids. And
it's unbelievable.
I've had 4 wives murdered and hundreds of kids.
It's unbelievable that Americans are that calloused, that cowardly, that diluted, that they don't care.
They all claim they're Christians, Greg.
All right. Yeah.
They're all Christians as they turn blind eyes to murder and call an old man like me who doesn't drink or do drugs and has real open murder cases. I'm crazy.
Right.
Right. Because they haven't seen me on TV with Jesse Ventura.
But they'll believe Jesse Ventura, the wrestler, out there giving you the truth.
With Austin and DuPont. That's correct.
Yeah, with Steve Austin and with Trump wrestling McMahon. And see, that's why I wanted to put that in, because it helps people that are, of that mindset to kind of see how their world connects to all this, because people are so debased in this country. Their thinking is so diluted.
You got my book finished. You're just waiting for me to edit it, aren't you?
Probably finished, depending on what else we want to say. Yeah.
There's too much to say. I can fill libraries with books.
I mean, we could write 300 more pages easy, but I mean, depending on what we want to put.
More books. Any chapter in your book could be a book in itself.
Well, it could easily. Yeah. There's
easily.
Yeah. And many books have been written on each part of it.
The thing holding me up is Amazon and Kindle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really terrible programs they have to put a book up online.
Well, if it proves too hard, we'll find another way. We'll get it out one way or another.
I've already edited your first book and put it in a form that any printer on earth can print, but not on Amazon.
Yeah. Right.
Good old Jeffrey. And none of these people.
They made it really difficult to use.
None of these
Kindle.
people, Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, Even McAfee, they wouldn't even exist if it weren't for my family.
Oh, I'm aware. Yeah, Cook and
Why?
um,
Why? Why are you aware and nobody else?
yeah, Gates and
Yeah, Gates
Joe
is my family
Jacobs.
member. Gates is my family member.
Mhm.
His mother was Gardner, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And my father, Joe Jacobs, gave him the software to make his first computer, right?
right, right.
Oh, so
Yeah, that's the
Zucker,
Gardner family, Ava
oh,
Gardner,
yeah,
and
so Zuckerberg and Bezos, they wouldn't even exist if I hadn't married Nancy, who was the daughter of the mayor of East Detroit.
Gardner's president, Ford's family. Yeah,
The
I mean,
mayor,
these
the
are big
mayor,
names.
Greg, the mayor of East Detroit, uh, Mr. Suarez, his daughter raped me when I was 14. She was
Yeah,
23, 24 years old, and I was 14. I married her because she got pregnant after she raped me,
yeah,
because she wanted to abort my daughter. I wouldn't let her.
right,
Oh,
right,
but I'm a liar and I'm crazy because I'm pro-life,
right, right.
right? My whole life through, I've had people like Biden and Kamala Harris. They want full-term abortion so they can sell body parts of real human beings.
Really tells you about who these people really
Yeah.
are.
Oh, and now you have a gay political party that kidnapped me at birth back in
Yeah,
'53.
yeah.
Oh, gee, I've been fighting them alone all my life.
Mhm.
And now the police, prosecutors all over the country help them defeat me, don't they?
Yeah,
They do it right out of the White House, don't they?
right.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I was kidnapped on the day they murdered Admiral Byrd, my family member, and my father's hands were cut off. And let's end this video here. Do you got anything else you want to add, Greg? You're free to talk.
No, I wanted to just put that picture in people's head. Try to remember about how the WWE has been a part of this picture. It'll help people remember things like why now people should be able to understand with Hulk Hogan having been your bouncer, where you played at Cavies, and then he can tell you 12 years in advance that the Twin Towers are going to come crumbling down. This is why these things happen. Other people have pointed out that has happened, but none of them understood why. And this is why, and this is how it all fits into your life, and how it fits into uh, Back to the Future and John DeLorean, and how all these things go together. Hopefully, they now understand um, why the President Trump had to be a part of the WWE, as Steve Austin is saying, and that's the bottom line. And his real
The
name is
very people that
Anderson. He
got
had to wrestle McMahon.
Greg, the very people that got Donald Trump elected are the very people who kidnapped me in '57.
Exactly. Yes.
And I was
Yes.
4 years old.
And
And they
Donald
murdered
Trump
kids
never
all around me.
removed, he never removed Osborne, who was your main rapist there, never removed him from heading the FBI sex crimes division or anything the whole time he was there, while they sent out the disinformation that he was really
And then
going
I
after
needed
the
an attorney
pedophiles.
general to put the Tennessee attorney general and a Michigan attorney generals and the California attorney general and prosecutors in line. And he appoints the very person who's not going to do it. You know who Biden appointed attorney general, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. The Wizard of Oz,
Yeah. And
Merrick Garland.
I grew up with the Garland family.
Within 24 hours of
And get this, Greg,
Ozhoff down
in Michigan, the Garland family ran Travis restaurants, like Travis, the country singer. And I grew
okay,
up with them, and they're all gays. And they hired all gays to run the Travis restaurants
makes
all the way
sense.
back in the '50s. So the very gays that kidnapped me and murdered kids in Oakland County are
Right.
your attorney general.
Well, they
Along
had
with
us,
Oz
yeah,
being
yeah, and they had
the
us say this is how Oz and the Garlands all come together, and what the Wizard of Oz is all about. Because there was a saying back in the 20s and 30s and 40s and stuff before.
I just opened another can.
Well, hold on, Hugh, hold on. I'm trying to say something here. they used to say, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" And they were referring to the Wizard of Oz because that was a picture. If one homosexual wanted to try to introduce himself to another homosexual without revealing it, he would say, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" And that talks about the Wizard of Oz and the over the rainbow. And that's why you had Josephine Baker, the first stripper, who had that rainbow organization, and then the Rainbow Push Coalition with Jesse Jackson. It all goes together. And this is why you had Merrick Garland appointed Attorney General within 24 hours of Ossoff winning the Senate in Georgia. None of that is a coincidence.
No, it's the gay political party that Joe Biden backs 100% and calls himself a Democrat. When the real Democrat was the Kennedy family, they murdered.
Right.
That's correct.
And that's why Osborne runs the sex crimes division of the FBI, even still does, as far as I know, and all the way and under Trump too. And then you had Oz again.
All three American parties are hiding my truth of Kennedy's real killers.
Yeah.
And they have been for 7 decades now.
And Oswald, who was set up for Kennedy's assassination, partially by Baker, and Baker made the gay flag. It all goes together so well.
Baker made the gay flag. Well, the whole Baker family lived on the Manning properties where my wives were murdered. Mm-hmm. But then what do I know?
Right.
You know, a rainbow flag, like the rainbow vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really sucks. It's worse than the Hoover vacuum they gave to me when I was kidnapped on Hoover Street.
You lived on Hoover Street.
And forced to give oral sex to grown men who were governors.
Right. It's amazing how they put this together.
At 4.
All right. Well, we'll end it here, Hugh. I think we summarized it as best we can. Hopefully, people have a good picture of it.
I'm an old man who interjects myself into things. The people who call me a broken record, go get a life. Always good to see you, Greg.
Seek justice. Seek justice. Justice.
I'll never stop.
No, you never will. I'm telling anybody that listens to this, help seek justice. That is your primary. That's what God himself does. He doesn't forgive first. He seeks justice. That's even what the prophet says.
The Capitol riot was all done to hide my truth.
Micah says, do justice, seek mercy. You know,
just
do
like
justice first, then
had
seek
my
mercy.
Receipts and my civil rights case in the Pentagon. The Capitol riots hid my truth of Attorney Barr. Bye.
All right. See you next time.